Hi, welcome back. I'm Melissa Muir. I have received a lot of questions about hammer hand pieces, and I know that I've done a number of videos in the past about the hammer hand pieces, but I wanted to show you guys just a couple more things. So let's take a look now. So here you see I've got 3 different hand pieces. These are all hammer hand pieces. 2 are meant for the flex shaft and 1 is meant for the micromotor. Today I'm going to concentrate a little more on the flex shaft hand pieces, not so much the one for the micromotor, but all of the information is pretty much going to apply. Now there are 2 different options for the flex shaft hammer hand pieces, one with a duplex spring and one without. However, you can always buy a duplex spring adapter, and this is going to make any of your hand pieces a duplex spring hand piece. The thing to note about this is that because of the way that these are made, if you bend them too far, so more than just 30 degrees, they can break. So if you think that you want to have a duplex spring, then I would highly suggest you go with the adapter rather than having it attached to your handpiece, because if this duplex spring breaks in here, then you have to replace the entire handpiece, and that may not be what is desired. Now, hammer hand pieces work on a reciprocating action, meaning that it's going to go back and forth here at the head of this. There is a little bit of maintenance that you need to do with hammer hand pieces, especially as you use them. There is a small hole here towards the head of the piece, and that is going to require a little bit of oil. And I mean a little bit of oil. I've had this oil now for I don't even know how many years, and you can't even tell that I've ever used it. It requires just 1 drop of oil, and I'm just going to place that right there in the hole, and then it will work its way in as well. Now, one other place that I need to do this, if I have a duplex spring, there is also a hole down here on the duplex spring itself, and I'm going to place just a drop of oil in there as well. And that's going to help keep your handpiece running smoothly for a very long time. All of the hammer hand pieces use what we call anvil points or anvil tips, and to swap them out, the anvil tips and your handpiece is going to come with a small steel bar, and I can insert this through the anvil point itself, and then I can just give a little twist and that will loosen the tension. Then I can unscrew this, place whichever other one I want on here, and screw that back into place. And I want to still give this a nice little tight, snug squeeze. Now the reason, or a turn, the reason for that is because with the vibration of our handpiece, it can loosen these up, and that's the last thing I need, especially if I have a shaped anvil point that has a specific purpose. Now, when you receive these anvil points, they are blanks. These are ready for you to alter them to be whatever you need them to be. Now, in the case of this guy here, this is a cylinder, okay? So it's just round, perfectly straight and even. On the top, it's completely flat, but the edges are a little bit sharp. I don't want to use this on my piece to, like, say, let's say a bezel. And what I need to do is I need to alter this. And so using a number of tools, and I do have other videos, and I'm going to show you this again in just a moment, I can shape this to be whatever I need it to be. In this case, I left the top slightly flat, but I rounded it on the edges so that I would not be damaging any bezels, and it gave me a little bit of clearance if I'm working up against a stone. These are harder, so working it with a file, while possible, will take you a little bit longer. So one of the things that I like to use to reshape these are going to be these diamond wheels. This is something that I use a lot when I'm shaping my gravers for hand engraving, but they work really great here too. So you can work from very, very coarse all the way through super fine. I don't typically go super fine. I like to leave mine so that it has maybe like equivalent to something like a 400, 600 grit finish, but not necessarily a mirror polish. I do want to make sure, however, that there are no divots or dings, because those can transfer to our pieces. To use these, I'm going to put one into my rotary handpiece, and now I'm going to place my anvil point into the number 30 handpiece. I'm going to tighten this up, but I want to make certain that I don't go too far because I don't want to crush those threads. So now all I have to do is just get both of them going, and then I can shape this anvil point however I want. In this case, I'm going to remove some of the oxides on there and then begin to shape it. Now, it is important that you wear eye protection as well as a mask, because this is going to create some small particles. Anytime you're using any of these high-powered tools to sharpen others or shape them, you want to make certain that you're really protecting your lungs and wear that mask. Hammer hand pieces should never be run over 5,000 RPM. So you can either get a tabletop control unit, or you can pair this with an LX motor, which is a high torque, low speed motor. It only goes to 5,000 RPM. So I know that if I run that at full speed, I'm not going to burn out my handpiece as easily as if I were to use it with an SR that goes to 18,000 RPM. You can use it with an SR motor, and you can use it with your foot pedal. However, it is much more difficult, and you end up going a lot faster than you realize a lot of times, even though you're trying to control that with your foot pedal. So I highly suggest you either look at doing the LX motor for it or getting one of those hand controls for the tabletop units. So this is the pendant that I'm going to be working on. Now, I haven't set my stone yet. It just is kind of sitting in here for a moment. Like, I still have some other work that needs to be done, including finishing the texturing inside of this. Now, what I've got here is an anvil point that I've rounded out. This one actually came already rounded, and I'm going to use it to texture up as much as I can in here. However, you can see, like right here, I get stuck. So I can't get into there because it's too tight of a tolerance. However, there are other anvil points, including this one that is a sharp taper point, and I can use that then to get into these really tight areas and get the texture in there. Now, the texture is going to be slightly different than with this because their faces are different. So the tapered point that comes to a really fine point is going to give me a very small dot, whereas this one is going to give me a larger dot. And what I can do then is come back and just kind of add some smaller dots over the pieces that have the larger one to kind of help blend that all in. One of my favorite things about the handpiece that goes on the flex shaft is that it automatically actuates, meaning that you can actually see that pulsing happening right as soon as I push my pedal. So it works a little bit different on a micromotor, but this makes it so much easier for my texturing. Now, because I have some really tight spaces, you can see that I cannot get in to do the texturing. And so it leaves me with some blank spots in here. And that is where I will then bring this little piece in and get into those tight spots into here. And then, like I said, I will then take it in and kind of blend in some of the different hammer points. And now we have a texture that's much more evenly distributed. In addition to texturing my pieces, hands down, the way that it gets used the most is to set my stones. So here I've taken an anvil point, and there was one that already had kind of a curve, so it looked a lot like a bezel rocker. And so again, I just cleaned it up, smoothed it, rounded it, and now I'm ready to set my stone. I like to mount it into my ball vise, that way I can move this around as I go. And I'm going to make certain that I hit just right here on the edge of that bezel. Everything is there mostly. I still have a little bit of wiggle, and what I'm going to do is now move over to that anvil point that I created earlier in the video. And now everything is laid down perfectly and beautifully smooth. People ask about, does it leave a hammer mark? And yes, there is a slight hammer mark on here, but that will polish out very easily. You can use a burnisher to go around it and then finish it just as you normally would. So these are my two favorite ways of using the hammer handpiece for texturing as well as setting my stones. Now I do use it for other things, like sometimes I'll do it for flaring rivets and different operations like that. I will also use it to sometimes set my prongs. So there's a number of ways that you can use this, and hopefully this helps to kind of clear some of that up, especially the part where we need to shape and alter those anvil points for whatever our own needs are. If you have any questions, make sure you leave those down in the comment section. We'll be sure to get back to you. As always, if you like it, make sure you subscribe, ring that bell, and hit that you want all notifications so you don't miss any more videos. We'll see you guys in the next one.